Hi. I just finished chores and I'm having a little bit of coffee in peace and quiet. So I thought this would be a good time to start this video series that I've wanted to start for a while now. I just haven't had time. I do have some blogs up on our website talking about these similar things, probably in a little bit more detail. But here's a little bit more of a story version and my own personal findings and opinion. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about eggs and the egg industry and some of the labeling things that I have learned since having our own flock and doing the whole selling egg thing. So let me begin a little bit where my natural food journey started when I first had my first child and had a home birth, and then kind of was like, wow, this natural stuff has something to it. So he had a really hard time nursing, and when he was 1, I found him some raw milk. I had to sign up for a cow share, which said I legally owned a portion of this cow, and I was just paying people to service the cow, which wasn't really factual, in order to get the raw milk in the state I was living in at the time, which was Wyoming. I thought that was super silly, and through that, it kind of introduced me to the realities of getting your hands on truly naturally grown and produced, less processed food. Basically, it's illegal, or at least in its most unadulterated version, it's illegal, or very hard to get, or very expensive, or all of the above. So that was kind of my first experience. Fast forward to now, we have cattle and sheep and chickens and ducks and geese and probably some other things besides dogs and cats that I'm not thinking of. And we sold eggs for a handful of years before deciding that it just wasn't very profitable. Eggs are the lowest margin of food. We sold our eggs for $7 a dozen, and that was with organic feed. I think we ended up bumping it up to $7.50 maybe, but with organic feed. And we move them every day in a Eggmobile, which if you don't know what that is, go ahead and look at Joel Salatin's Eggmobile design. And it was a lot of work. So you would have to open up the chickens in the morning and feed them first thing. We would typically feed them again later in the day and collect their eggs. And then we would check on them and feed them again. And then at the end of the day, you have to close them up so that no predators get them. That's a lot of work. On top of that, you have to clean the eggs in some fashion, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and package them, which also costs money, and you can't sell them for very much. So, and of course, they're also, not shelf stable. You can't sell them a year from now and freeze them. So you have to get them out the door at a reasonable amount of time. So all of that really was not cost effective for us. And most farmers say that you have to have at least 1,000 chickens for you to even break even. We had around, I think, 250 chickens at the height. And someday we might do it again. We might have 1,000 chickens and do the whole thing to actually make money. But for now, it was just too much work. And the investment to get to 1,000 chickens was going to be, I think, around $16,000. And so we said, we're going to take a break from it. And it's been nice having a little bit less chores. So today, at least in the state that I'm in, which is Illinois, so I'm going to be giving you information on that. If you have a small flock, you can get what's called a limited license. You'll still have to get a license through the state of Illinois and follow their rules. Their rules are pretty, in general, acceptable to live by, except there's one thing that I have an issue with, and it's something that's been a theme for me the last year of raising animals and providing animal products to people that I'm really unhappy with, and that I don't, I guess it just doesn't sit right with me to be putting so much heart and soul into producing a product that people feel is the healthiest, and it probably is the healthiest they can get their hands on. But that has to be washed in some sort of manner. So the state of Illinois, even if you have a limited flock, if you deliver off your premises at all, so this doesn't apply to you if you can have customers come and pick up. And we are such a rural location that just isn't an option for us. It would be awesome if we could have our customers kind of organize that kind of pickup scenario, but right now that just isn't how our customers get our food. So if you deliver in any sort of fashion off your farm, you have to use a federally approved wash. Most of these washes have really nasty things in them. And if you know anything about chicken eggs or any eggs, the chicken or whatever sort of poultry or fowl puts a protective coating, if you will, called a bloom on the egg. And that stops anything, any bacteria, fungus, whatever, from getting in the egg generally. Once you wash the egg, that coating is now removed. And so any bacteria that would be introduced to the area is now potentially going into your food. In Europe, this is not the case. In fact, farmers have to sell unwashed eggs, which is a lot smarter, but the United States is not there yet. So you would have to use one of the federally approved egg washes, and whatever eggs you're getting, if you buy them at the store, they're washed in one of these egg washes that doesn't have ingredients that you would like covering your eggs. So I really drew an issue with that. And then on top of that, I want to talk to you a little bit about, because I think this is what people are interested in, a little bit about just the labeling. We have near us, and my husband's actually worked for them and helped build buildings for them, so it's not really a secret. We have very large organic chicken egg farms. These chickens are cage-free because they don't live in any sort of cage. They are pasture raised because they have access to a pasture, but they're not living on a pasture. It's not quite the same. They live in a really large barn, like a pole barn, and are stuffed in there. I'm not going to go into too many gruesome details, but you can kind of imagine. They have access to a pasture, so they have like a fenced-in area outside with a small door. Only a couple chickens end up finding that door and actually going out there a couple times in their lives. So they're not living on fresh grass every day. So that is kind of the reality of the cage-free. It just means they don't live in a cage. And the pasture-raised birds that lay eggs, and that eggs are sold at the store. So that is why when you buy a egg from a farm, even if the farm doesn't have great practices, that's why they look so much better, so much oranger, and the yolks stay together so much better than the eggs that are sold with the same kind of labeling at the store. I guess another label I can touch on is vegetarian fed. Chickens are actually omnivores, so that's not necessarily a good thing. But yeah. So what you want to be looking for when you are sourcing your eggs, I'll talk about now, and then I'll give you my recommendation of what I think you should do regarding buying eggs. You want to see somebody who is somehow moving the chickens. Now, in the winter, that's not my hands are dirty. Yes, this is actually clean, but in the winter, it is hard to move chickens in the snow and that kind of stuff. So if they have a chicken house, a chicken coop in the winter, and the chickens at least have access to the outdoors, that's great. But in the summer, you really want to see those chickens moving. And why that is if they stay, even if they have access to all the pasture they want, if they stay in the same coop, they're going to end up kind of eroding the soil around the coop, and that's a soil issue. But in addition to that, where there's bare ground, you can kind of get into your mind, there's a breeding ground for disease. So bacteria, parasites, all the stuff you don't really want in your chicken eggs, that's what the scenario kind of creates. People who are cognizant of this issue and still have to have a coop that doesn't move will put at least hay or straw down so that the ground is not bare, and they'll do a deep bedding, so just really, really deep bedding of some sort, whether it's sawdust or wood chips or pine shavings or straw or whatever, in their chicken houses, and change that as often as they can so that that material is able to soak up all of the chicken manure, because that's kind of your concern. So what you're hoping to find is someone who moves the chickens in the warm months to fresh grass. And again, that's so that you're not eroding the soil and harming the soil, and on the flip side of that, not creating a bare ground situation where the birds are sitting in dirt all the time. They do like to take dust baths, but sitting in dirt all the time so that they are essentially breeding disease. They're also not really fulfilling their function of spreading their fertility. So when you have the animals in something that looks like a chicken tractor, and I'll see if I can stick up a picture in the end of this, you're able to, or an egg mobile like Joel Salatin's design, you're able to move them to fresh grass often, ideally daily, but maybe every couple days if you're really busy. And that's going to allow them to not tear up the ground and to not live on bare dirt, but also to eat fresh bugs and fresh grass and fresh seeds and all of that good stuff. And that's where you'll get some really healthy birds and eggs. So that's what you want to be looking for. Now, if you are trying to find a farm like that and either you can't or you just can't afford the price tag that it takes to pay someone to do that work for you, because again, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and a lot of farmers who sell eggs are not making a profit on them. They're doing so just to, be able to sell the other products that they have, and they know their customers also want eggs. My suggestion is if you can find a neighbor who has decent practices to buy eggs from them, not only is that you're going to actually be able to influence how those chickens live, but it's something super hyper local to you. So in a case where you aren't able to drive to get food, you're able to eat those eggs. If you don't have someone near you that is raising chickens for eggs, why don't you see if you can get 5 people together who are all interested and maybe pick whose house makes the most sense to have the chickens at, and each split up doing chores and split the cost. That might be an easy way for you to get some low cost but high work chicken eggs. Otherwise, I feel like it's decently easy to find somebody who has backyard chickens. Now you're going to want to look into the feed and all that stuff as well. But just, if you had 2 or 3 people that are keeping backyard chickens, you'll probably have a decent supply for yourself. If you live in an area where you cannot have chickens, I'm sorry. Definitely do what you can to petition your city board, your town board to be able to have them, because I think that's super unfair. And you can totally, enclose them so they don't have to worry about them going onto your neighbor's property or whatever they're worried about. I feel like there was something I was going to add to that, but I can't think of it right now. I hope that's a little bit helpful and gives you a little bit of idea what's going on in the egg sphere. It's something that, and I guess I'll round back out to the egg washing. It's just something to be aware of, and it's really hard to find truly unadulterated food. So if someone is charging a high price, it's not because they want to make a lot of money. It's because they put in the work and the amount of input regarding, healthy food and maybe even supplements and all of this stuff to actually have healthy chickens and therefore healthy eggs. So I can guarantee you nobody's making any, or at least not a lot of money on eggs. But it's something that we all eat, we all enjoy. It's an amazing source of protein, and we cannot eat grass, or, I guess we can eat seeds and bugs, but we'd rather not, and turn them into healthy protein, but chickens can. And so that is such a huge perk of having them and eating their eggs. I hope this was a little bit helpful for you, and I'm coming at this from not a super farmer perspective, but from a mom perspective of trying to find the best food. I know we all spend so much money on the food that we buy that you want to be sure that it is, my dog's barking, want to be sure that it is, at least high quality for the money. That is my suggestions, and that's kind of the information I hopped on to share with you today. I'll probably move on to sharing some about the meat industry and kind of going into, sorry, the dog, you probably don't hear it, but he's barking his head off, going into red meat in my next video. Have a lovely day.